Hey, check this out. Wednesday, December 12th, 2012. Do we only have 9 days left? I've heard some of the hype about Doomsday, and I've asked myself, is it possible?
The ancient Mayan civilization could have developed a calendar that predicts the end of the world on December 21st, 2012.
I've been around 58 years. I've visited some interesting places, and I've done some cool things. I visited Stonehenge, which is one of the most famous ancient sites in the world.
It was fascinating to touch and climb on the stone monument believed to have been built centuries before the writing of the Bible.
I also explored the ruins near Sussex,
where the Battle of Hastings had taken place in 1066 during the Norman conquest of England,
as well as the temple and bathing complex in the city of Bath.
That was built by the Romans during their occupation of Britain.
In southern France,
I had walked the streets through the medieval walled city of Carcassonne,
and I toured a few of the many
buildings and high towers inside the fortress.
In 1999, my wife and I
visited New York City, and we know how it felt to stand outside the World Trade Towers looking up.
I enjoyed a hot dog and a beer
on the 86th floor observation deck of the Empire State Building,
while my wife
fed a bird that was enjoying the view of Manhattan with us.
We have also visited
the Peace Garden, located on the Canada-US border between North Dakota and the province of Manitoba.
I know how it felt to stand beside
the thick steel beams that had once been part of the World Trade Center towers before the terrorist attack on September 11th, 2001.
I've been to Hawaii several times,
and I've had a lot of fun on Waikiki Beach.
As a young man in my early 20s, I went scuba diving in the warm Hawaiian waters. I know how it feels
to explore the ocean bottom, to have a manta ray swim above my head and look into the steely, beady eyes of a moray eel I found hiding in the rocks.
My wife and I have looked at the stunning scenery from the top of Hanauma Bay,
which is a fish sanctuary and maybe one of the best snorkeling spots in the world.
And yes, we did.
Check out the incredible marine life and the beautiful coral in the bay.
I climbed Diamond Head, which may be the most famous volcano in the world, twice.
The first time in 2000 with my wife and our 3 sons while suffering from hepatitis C-related liver cirrhosis.
And again 8 years later with my wife,
after having received a life-saving liver transplant.
Together we have hiked
through the thick rainforest on the outskirts of Honolulu, along rocky trails at times, until we reached the beautiful Manoa Falls.
One of the most memorable things that I've done while visiting Hawaii
was to take my sons to visit the USS Arizona Memorial, which marks the resting place of more than 1,100 sailors,
as well as tour the battleship
Missouri, or Mighty Mo as it was known, with its huge naval guns that had seen action in World War II, the Korean War, and the Gulf War in 1991.
I believe Japan's sneak attack on December 7, 1941 against the United States at Pearl Harbor set the wheels in motion for the development of the atomic bomb. And less than a football field away, I photographed my sons standing on the wooden deck of the battleship Missouri,
next to the spot where Japanese government officials had signed the surrender documents in September 1945.
Shortly after their cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had received the first nuclear war lessons in the history of mankind.
One of my favorite places to visit is the Rocky Mountain town of Banff, Canada, where I had asked my wife to marry me 28 years ago.
We found the best way
to experience those breathtaking giant treasures was from the top,
and have some fun
playing in the snow on those lofty mountain ridges.
When my wife and I visited
the island of Elsa Morales, located in the Gulf of Mexico,
she got very upset with me
when I jumped in and helped 2 men wrestle a couple of sharks out of the water.
I still remember how ornery
they became as we held them still so other people could have their picture taken with a shark.
I have traveled with my family
north of the 60th parallel, where winter temperatures often drop between 40 and 50 degrees below zero.
I have seen and come face
to face with wildlife many times on our travels.
I've hunted big game like moose, elk, deer, and bear.
On mountains and in swampy meadows and other secluded wilderness places where I'd often wondered if I was the first human to step there.
And I've always kept an eye open for any kind of evidence that would prove to me that Bigfoot existed.
When we visited Jamaica for our son's wedding,
I snorkeled with my wife and 2 of our sons
in the Caribbean Sea where pirates had once sailed.
And we have walked, jumped, and hopped over rocks and climbed over big boulders.
To reach the 180-meter peak of Dun River's Falls with cold mountain water rushing down over us.
My wife and I have also visited the Dominican Republic.
We sailed along the shoreline in a catamaran.
And together we
explored the Atlantic Ocean from below the surface.
And we had fun.
Taking each other's pictures in the deep water.
As well as
visited some of the local villages riding in a monster truck. And we explored the countryside on horseback as well.
One of our favorite experiences while in the Dominican Republic was when
we visited a school for underprivileged children and donated sporting equipment to the kids that we brought with us from Canada.
I have visited some interesting places and I've done some cool things. But the most incredible experience in my entire life was when I faced death in 2001.
I had enjoyed excellent health for the first 46 years of my life. I developed young athletes in hockey, baseball, and football, and I had coached young players in more than 1,000 games over a 27-year coaching career. And my wife and I have always been avid sports fans as well.
Then out of nowhere,
jaundice turned my skin and eyes yellow, my legs filled with edema, and my abdomen with ascites.
I was diagnosed with hepatitis C and liver cirrhosis and told that I had a year to live.
I know how it felt to feel myself weakening day by day and watch the muscle mass under my skin wither away right in front of my eyes.
Death was chasing me and I had nowhere to hide. I'm not a religious man, but I reached out to God for help. I promised him that if he gave me my health back and showed me miracles, I would tell people.
Despite the overwhelming odds that were stacked against me of receiving a new liver, I underwent a transplant operation on January 27th of 2002.
I received a string of miracles that I wouldn't have thought possible in the exact chronological order and at precisely the right time that protected me and my family before and after my transplant. And I have the proof.
I will always remember raising my hand when all the needles and the plastic drain tubes had been removed from my body and saying to my wife, "Thumbs up for God."
As well as the powerful feeling that surged through my body when I went cruising
around town on my motorcycle with my youngest son 4 months after my liver transplant.
And how truly blessed I was to have God pull me out of death's grip.
So that I could keep my promise to my wife and see that our 4 sons graduated from high school and went on to college.
I know how it feels to think about my own mortality, but in all honesty, death is guaranteed for everyone born into the world. And there are no exceptions. But I ask myself the question, will mankind cease to exist on December 21st, 2012?
Because some people believe the ancient Mayan civilization have predicted the end of the world on a calendar?
My wife and I have visited the ruins
at Chichen Itza, which is believed to have been one of the largest ancient Mayan cities in the Yucatan state of Mexico.
We spent hours walking through and exploring the old remains,
looking at the different architectural designs of each of the unique buildings, and we never came across a snake or a scorpion or any tarantula spiders.
The Mayan people seemed to be a bloodthirsty civilization that thrived on human sacrifice. Gory carvings can be seen on the ruined walls, and they gave us a glimpse of ancient Mayan life.
We explored the ball field where it appeared that the Mayans played a game somewhat similar to modern-day basketball, with the exception that some players' heads were chopped off after the match.
I stood on the platform above the spot where severed heads had fallen into a shallow bowl that had been carved out of the rock, wondering how much blood had been spilled below my feet.
My wife and I explored the building believed to have been the Mayan observatory.
Like many ancient civilizations, the Mayans were believed to have studied the planets and the stars.
We walked through the many rows of columns that were once believed to have been part of a structure called the Temple of Warriors.
I couldn't help wondering if that was the place where men and women and children had been held down by their arms and legs, while their beating hearts were cut from their chests in a sacrificial ceremony.
I stood right on the edge of the deep sinkhole that is known as the Well of Sacrifice. I won't forget looking down into the dark green water,
where archaeologists have found the remains of men and children, and wondering just how many people had been thrown into that large pool as an offering to the Mayan gods.
My wife and I climbed the Mayan temple known as El Castillo, that seemed to be about the height of a 6-story building.
The Mayan people weren't very big, and the stairs leading to the top were very narrow. And with my size 10 foot, I had to be very careful that I didn't slip.
We climbed stair by stair on a scorching 103-degree afternoon, only to find that there was nothing in the room at the top of the temple.
I found the ancient Mayan city at Chichen Itza to be very interesting. But the question remains, is it possible that the Mayans could have predicted the end of the world on December 21st, 2012? Have no fear, the world and mankind will still be here. I don't believe there is any possible way on earth the Mayans could predict the end of the world. My wife and I explored Chichen Itza from end to end. I didn't see anything that would persuade me that the Mayan people possessed the intelligence or held any supernatural ability that would allow them to look into the future and predict the end of the world. I believe the only thing that will happen on December 21st, 2012, that will affect every man, woman, and child on the planet, is for those of us that live in the northern hemisphere, it will be the first day of winter. And for those people that live in the southern hemisphere, the first day of summer will have arrived. My name is Daniel Phillips.
If you would like to learn more about When God and Me and Hepatitis C will be published in 2013, please check us out at God and Me and Hep C at YouTube, God and Me and Hepatitis C at Facebook, and God and Me and Hepatitis C at MySpace.